Serious. Those in interracial marriages. What obstacles did you face and have you faced that you weren't expecting? Story 1. I'm half Korean and my wife is white. I have 2 kids. One kid is obviously ambiguous ethnic heritage and the other is blonde hair and blue-eyed. My son takes after me on my Korean side. My daughter takes after her mother. My father had blonde hair as a kid and is blue-eyed. I never thought I'd have to explain to my daughter that she's really my daughter. I've had people come up to me and try to stop me from picking her up. I've had people straight out ask me who her father is. Why would an Asian guy have anything to do with a white kid? With my daughter there, I tell them that she's my daughter and that they need to screw off. However, she is young and it leaves doubt in her head. She looks at me and we look nothing alike. I have naturally tan skin, almond eyes, and brown hair and eyes. She's fair-skinned and has round eyes, blonde hair, and blue eyes. It worries her. It worries her that it's so obvious strangers have not believed me when I told them she was my daughter. She's mostly good now, though. We've got my dad to send a bunch of pictures of when he was little and my parents visited more often. She would see her grandpa had hair like hers and eyes like hers, and that helps a lot. She knows he is my father and she looks like her grandpa. I don't look like grandpa, I look like grandma. Another thing that my daughter has to deal with. So I don't speak Korean to my kids, but they hear me speaking it when talking to my family. The result is that they picked up some words, so my daughter was asked why she used a Korean word and she said, I'm Korean because, well, she is. The person apparently tried to tell my daughter she did not. Thankfully, my wife was there and shut that crap down. My daughter uses what Korean words she knows and asks a lot of questions about how I grew up. I think she does it to connect with me given the above issue. Final thing, apparently white people feel a lot more comfortable saying crazy crap around other white people. Someone said something stupid and my wife is like, I'm married to an Asian guy, right? Story 2. A lot of normal Tamil phrases literally translate into uber crappy English ones. White man, Hindu, Tamil wife, specifically with respect to obstacles that I wasn't expecting. Obviously, I expected a little bit. It's the language barrier specifically with respect to words that have literal translations that don't quite work in English. For example, there's a word in Tamil that literally translates to useless, but the Tamil word is often used colloquially to mean something closer to not currently needed or useless for my current purposes. But that doesn't stop my wife from describing all kinds of people, including me frequently, as straight up useless, including to their faces, and then wondering why these people either get angry or just avoid her. Also, multiple different Tamil words all tend to be shorthanded into the word thing, which means she often talks like some kind of comedic parody of I don't honestly know, largely unaware of the fact, I need a thing for this thing, it's over by the thing, can you get it? Looks at me not moving. You just going to stand there and be useless? Story 3. I am a black woman married to a Korean man. Here are just a few of the dumb things we endure. When we go out to eat, we get our leftover food in separate bags and they try to give us separate checks. We run a business and are 50-50 partners together and are successful. It's always my husband's business and his money because, Asians are always rich. Not sure if prejudiced or sexist. People assume we are never together in lines at bars or at social events. Can't tell you the number of times men openly hit on me right next to my husband. Usually only happens if we're just standing next to each other and not really talking. If we are talking, they assume we work together. And the stares. OMG, the stares we get. We might as well be Martians. We don't even need to be doing anything special, just walking in the mall or down the street. People openly gawk. One time when I went to go test drive a Cadillac, I told the salesperson what I was looking for and he went off to find the car. It took him a really long time for him to locate the model of vehicle I wanted, over half an hour, so I popped my head into the office to tell him, never mind. He then asked me for my social security number. Like, what? I've been buying cars for over 20 years. Never had I had someone ask me for my SSN when trying to test drive a car. Also, I was currently driving a Lexus, so I've been used to dealing with premium dealerships. Now, my husband was sitting next to me in the waiting area and was flabbergasted. I was doing all the talking since it was my car that I was looking to test drive and possibly buy. At that point, my husband stands up and tells the salesman that we're leaving since he was obviously trying to pre-qualify before even showing me the car. The looks and stares we got, plus an apology. I think that the whole situation really hit home for my husband that even between minorities there are the good ones and the bad ones. It hurt his feelings for a long time because to each other I am just his wife and he is just my husband, nothing more, nothing less. On a side note, no one in his family has ever been rude or nasty to me. They have always treated me with respect and also with the deference my position within our family holds. My husband is the eldest son of the eldest son. My family has been nice and respectful to my husband as well. That's one fight we didn't have to have. Although I will say we have had our own issues in building our marriage because of our different cultures. We have since learned what's important to each other and respect and support that. At the end of the day, you are married to each other, not each other's cultures or families. You have to respect and love the person you lay down with at night. Story 4. I grew up in an upper middle class, all white North Shore Long Island town and went to a private school that was all upper middle class to flat out rich white people. I didn't really know any non-white people until I went to undergrad at NYU. My family is very, very conservative, and so I put off introducing them to my then black girlfriend as long as I could. I tried to give her as much warning as I could to the point where we talked about it if we should end our relationship, but when the time came, if my family viewed her any differently from any white girl I brought home, it's never been mentioned. They've always treated her normally. They treat her much better than my sister's white husband, but he's a crappy guy. On the other hand, her family has never really accepted me, and it's the only real source of conflict in our marriage. Her mom still lives in Brooklyn, but her father moved to Baltimore, which is good for us. My mother-in-law accepts that I'm a good husband, father, and provider, but wishes I was a good black husband, father, and provider. Her father sees me as nothing more than the white man who stole his daughter away from whatever black guy he wanted to introduce her to. And there's always a new black guy she's telling her about despite us being married with 2 kids. Her siblings are a mixed bag. The ones in NY mostly like me well enough while wishing I was black, but her Baltimore ones won't accept she's with a white guy. None of that really bothers me per se, but what does bother me is when our kids are with them. A car ride home after a day with my in-laws consists of me explaining why it's okay that their mother married a white man, and sometimes things are said that get them really, really upset. My wife wants our kids to have a relationship with her side of the family, which I certainly understand, but I don't like the things they say to our kids about me. Story 5. I'm Chinese and my significant other is white. A funny and minor observation we had was that my overfeeding her was a cultural thing. Like, whenever I was snacking on something, I would break her off a piece without question. And it used to hurt my feelings a little bit when she said she didn't want it. Or when I cook, I always cook more than a meal's worth, so whenever she finished her serving, I would refill her plate without even asking her. To her, I'm full means I don't want to eat a single bite more, whereas to me, I'm full means don't serve me another full-size portion. I know it sounds stupid, but it actually took me a while to get used to the fact that someone is unwilling to eat more food and that there's always room for a little more isn't a universal mindset. Story 6. It was already expected, but unpleasant still. Me, an Asian female, adopted and raised by a white family. Husband, white male of German descent. Grandma is Oma and grandpa is Opa still. Raised in rural South USA, mostly by father and stepmother who could be a Paula Deen clone. My husband's big reveal was that he was dating a non-white girl. His dad says, "Well, son, we're just glad she isn't black." Then him saying, "You don't have to squint, it's not that dark in here." This was meant as a joke, and I took it as such since there was no malicious intent, just ignorant joking. I replied, "Screw you, where's the beer?" I asked to come for Christmas 2 years later and walk in on the husband's stepmother's family giving orations on the sin and prohibitions in the Bible of the Germanic and Asiatic tribes intermixing. We were the family's shame until his stepsister was impregnated by a black man out of wedlock. She went on to steal a lot of money for drugs and declare herself a lesbian. Really took the heat off of us. A pleasant surprise was from his very German and very traditional grandparents. His Oma and mostly blind Opa were immediately accepting. His Opa said, "White, black, purple, it all looks the same to me." They were very pleased I was making him finish college and making something of himself as well as procreating to carry on the vet-shrinking family name. Story 7. It's the people you grow up with who suddenly grow cold. You know, in any family, there'll be people you get along with really well, and others perhaps it's not so close, but you're all family. There are always the awful ones you tolerate, their racist jokes and refusal to accept the 70s are over, but I don't mean those guys. Prepare to be frozen out by some of the ones you cherish most, the ones you like, the ones that are chill and you feel comfortable in each other's homes, you babysit their kids and share a glass of wine with and laugh at the weekend, the good ones. Those times when you used to laugh at your cousin's fave Jamaican accent together are gone. The idiot who grew up in Toronto is still doing the accent, but your friend and confidant are now on the other side of the room ignoring you. And suddenly, you're not the preferred babysitter anymore. Invites to lunch dry up, and what used to be big, rambunctious dinners full of laughter end up being forced, timid formalities. And all because you dare to love somebody who they don't like the look of. And the fact we're not even married yet. It's going to get worse from here. Story 8. White male, engaged to a black female for 4 years before breaking up. Long story, unrelated to our interracial status. I'm a Yankee from the West Coast and raised she's purebred from New Orleans. The cultural differences based on locale were what caused, not necessarily issues or incidents, but events. Nothing that generally caused a stink or resulted in more than a passing glance. If anything, the cultural dynamism just from our geographic backgrounds was more apparent than any racial issues. and usually all in good fun, except for restaurants in the South. It was always 50-50 in what kind of experience we'd get from the waitstaff because of race. I have a staunch northerner, don't look at anybody mentality, so if there were looks or sneers from other diners, I never noticed. They would always be pleasant and friendly to our faces, but half the time you could tell it was facetious or condescending and always directed at me, as in, really dude, you picked a black chick? Traitor. On rare occasions, our food would be tampered with. The worst time, we'd gone to a fancy steakhouse to celebrate. My steak was burnt, as in solid char all around. She had a rusty wire coil, no idea where that came from, mixed into her salad. Suffice it to say that meal was on the house in more ways than one. But as I say, up in Minnesota, it could have been worse. Had a former close friend pull me aside not long after she and I got engaged and asked me, dude, tell me you ain't this N-word. I can't confirm since I haven't spoken to him since, but I'm pretty certain one or both of his testicles don't work anymore because I need them with the unholy force of 1,000 souls of the 54th Massachusetts wielding chainsaws, etched with verses from the Emancipation Proclamation. That was the worst anybody ever said to me, directly. Story 9. Not in an interracial marriage, but in an interracial relationship. Obstacles we face have taught me something about interracial relationships in the U.S. in general, and how there is somewhat of a double standard. I'm Hispanic and darker skinned, while my SO is a tall blonde from the Midwest, mostly of Scandinavian heritage. Throughout my life, I knew many white male and Hispanic female couples who were perfectly accepted and didn't face that many issues. I'm dating a white girl and I'm not trying to brag too much, but she is good looking, as in she was told she could model when she was a teenager type of good looking. As for me, I get told I look like Wilmer Valderrama a lot. Almost every single time I go out for a date, I have to deal with aggressive guys coming on to her. Every single time we keep hearing, oh, blondes don't usually go for Hispanics, and how weird we are compared to other interracial couples. Some women she's met and become friends with have tried to get her to leave me and go for a guy who's white, their logic being that she is too good to be dating a Mexican. A couple of them told my girlfriend this to her face, and I later find out about it when she told me. I have to deal with angry Hispanic women who barely know me and my girlfriend and often harass us. One even shouted to my girlfriend, nah, you don't need to be with him. I've also had to deal with aggressive white guys, usually younger, the early to mid-20s type, coming on to her, and as soon as she rejects them, they turn to make racist jokes about my heritage. In a few instances, I've almost gotten into a fight because the guy grabbed my girlfriend after she told him to get lost. I gotta say, there is a double standard in American society when it comes to interracial relationships. Seems like as a white guy, you can date a beautiful Latina or a beautiful woman of any race, to be honest, and no one cares, but if a Hispanic guy dates a beautiful white girl, God forbid it's a blonde, then everyone's inner racist comes out and life becomes more difficult. Story 10. That's your husband? Everyone always is so shocked. I'm a black female, and my husband is white. It's been quite a ride. We live in a very, woodsy part of North Carolina, and we don't get the nicest looks when we walk by. When we first moved here, we went to a food place, and the woman working at the deli said, wow, you never see that. Me. What? A white man and a black woman together. Me. Oh. Awkward silence. Another time, at a pub in Florida, we went our separate ways to get some snacks, and I was at the register first waiting for him, and the bagger, who was a nice black guy, said that I looked very pretty and started talking to me, being very flirtatious. I was polite and still was waiting for my husband. Then he finally comes into the line and puts some food down and says, hey, sweetheart. Then the bagger looked at him totally confused and then looked at me and then back to my husband. If he could have turned beet red, he would have. He just sighed, defeated, and apologized and walked away. Then another time we were at a bar. My husband is very attractive and super friendly. His friendliness can also be misconstrued as being flirty. I can't leave him alone in a bar for 2 seconds without some white girl walking up to him. Even when I walk over, girls don't realize that we are a thing, so I have to put my witch face on and scare them away. Story 11. White man, Native American wife. I've never met a more chill, honest, or strong group of people than my in-laws. Traps on reservations, in the U.S. at least, is completely insane, is full of daily struggle, loss, and silent pain, but my wife's family deals with it without batting an eye. My wife is, stereotypically, high-strung and sometimes says stuff ignorantly that would probably get her kicked out of a black or Latina household. My in-laws think it's all completely hilarious. Every mistake is entertainment. Nothing is sacred. They seriously help me improve my outlook on life. Story 12. My husband and I went to Disney World with my side of the family, so there are 11 black people and only one white man. We're in line, and when it's our turn for the ride, they always cut the line off when it got to him. Even after telling the ticket person there were 12 in our group. If he was fifth in line, our group just had to magically stop there. Everyone had to explain that he was, in fact, part of our group and no one was trying to cut us. Story 13. I took my half Jamaican wife to see my parents in Wales, deepest, darkest Wales. We then used the opportunity to have a long weekend holiday down there. Turns out a lot of the locals down there are still racist as crap. At one pub we had to leave as it was clear the locals were joking with the staff about my missus. The cowards switched to Welsh when we walked in and they noticed her so we couldn't understand, but the intonation and the sneers were clear. We had food on the way, so screw that place. Hope they did spit in it so they then couldn't eat it themselves. To clarify, my entire family is Welsh, going back as many generations as we can trace. My brother and I are the first filthy mudbloods born outside of Wales. Obviously, being a white boy in a white Welsh family, I'd never experienced this side of the culture until I got married. It was not just one pub either. Once I had cottoned down onto what was happening, I was watching more closely. In several places we went to visit, we noticed a distinct change of expression on the faces of those who noticed my wife. It made me angry and ashamed despite only being Welsh by blood, not nationality. My wife, with much more experience with this kind of thing, thought it was funny. Didn't bother her. We ended up leaving the area because of me, not her, getting upset. This was on the south coast of Wales in places called Rhys and Porthcarry, just west of Barry. We were borrowing my parents' static caravan holiday home in Fontgarry Leisure Park. That place was lovely. The Fontgarry Inn, just outside of the park, however, was a place we had to walk out of. Story 14. Asian, grew up in the U.S. South, got picked on all the time. It was just a way of life. Things got a lot better as kids got more mature over time and as society has gotten less and less racist over the past few decades. Grew up and married a white woman, and even though we remained in the South, I feel like we are rarely ever even viewed as an interracial couple, let alone discriminated against. But if you ask my wife, she feels like people treat us and her differently all the time. She says we get looks wherever we go, people have a problem with her last name, the separate checks thing, and other stuff. Me, I'm just glad they don't appear to be spitting in our food or running up to us and telling us how ungodly we are. Story 15. White male, black female, husband and wife team here. We've experienced our fair share of obstacles. We were around a liberal town right outside New Jersey, New Hope, and we were spit on by a motorcyclist on his way out of the main street. We were in Alexandria, Virginia at one of the old museums, and I went to go pay for my wife and I was stopped at the cash register as I was overpaying. I was stopped by the police before, and the cop actually pulled me out of the car and asked me if she was a and would not believe me until I showed her wedding photo that's in my wallet. Recently, I was told I support Donald Trump because I was a white male by some of her not-so-close family members. I would say most folks in an interracial marriage probably have enough stories to create a book on subtle and not-so-subtle racism. Story 16. White woman, Latin, immigrant, husband. I didn't expect to have to clarify we're together so much. Like, go to a checkout counter, both put our things on it, person rings up mine and gives me a total, like a guy standing 6 inches away to my left has nothing to do with me. Just really strange. Seems to happen rarely where we live, a major East Coast city. Happened a lot on our honeymoon, Western National Parks. Story 17. Interracial, black plus Native American mixed woman with white husband. I didn't expect to have to confirm that we were a couple, a lot. Example, we're in a store, my husband asks a question to the cashier and then steps away to look at something. Cashier to me, here is the item your friend was asking about? Me, my husband, thanks. I'm never a witch about it, it's not really a big deal, just unexpected. We really are blessed, we live in the US, and yes, racism is still a big problem, but if anyone is going to receive it, it'll be me, not him, not us. Things are changing, and for the better. I was adopted as an infant by a Caucasian couple in New England. The things they had to deal with, and only 27 years ago, blow my mind. Think positive. I love my marriage and my family. Story 18. I'm Hispanic and he's white. I was born and raised in the US and so were my parents. I'm super light-skinned and I've never really identified as culturally Latina until I try to fit in with his family. They're quiet, well-mannered, and don't really talk about feelings. My family is, and I am, louder, more honest, and I guess a little rough around the edges in comparison. I'd never really noticed before, but I guess we do exhibit some cultural differences. Story 19. White woman here married to a Southeast Asian man. We live in a rural area. Lots of staring at us in public. Oh, the staring. Including people who will crane their heads all the way around to stare at us going by in, say, the mall or Walmart. The worst part for me is a number of people, women, who, after learning I'm married to an Asian guy, say something along the lines of, oh, I've just never been attracted to Asian men, or words to that effect. You would not believe the number of people who say this straight to my face. Who knows why? What are they expecting me to say? This is way worse than the people who ask things like, does he speak much English? When he's lived in Canada longer than they've been alive. Story 20. people of your significant other's race hitting on them right in front of you because they don't think you're together.